All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American. I am your host. I am Clay Douglas. And got a few more things to do here. See if we can get that up. All right. What you need to understand, I kind of get down. I kind of get down on my audience sometimes. Probably turns some of them off. No doubt. No doubt I turn some of them off. And I tell you that you may get the impression, listen to me, that I have a pretty low opinion of your intelligence. You don't do your research, you don't read your history, you don't understand what's happening here. And, of course, that probably makes you angry. It probably makes you angry, and, oh, Clay, I don't like to listen to him. Why? Because I tell you the truth? Because I tell you what I've found out? I tell you your history? But you don't want to believe your history because they change the history. They change it every so slightly. They add their little twist to it. So you don't really know what's going on. And the television, your entertainment center, you spent $2,000 for that big screen TV, and you don't understand your history. Let me give you just a little bit of your history here. Germany, 1933 to 1945. 20 million people, 20,946,000 people were killed by their own governments, most of them. Here, let's see what they've got to say about it. If you don't
How many more innocent people?
How many more? How many more?
What has been the number one cause of unnatural death in history?
Genocide, or death by government, has killed 290 million people on record.
Look it up.
Go look it up.
In the 20th century, government murdered 4 times as many people as were killed in all the international and domestic wars combined.
USSR, 61,911,000 people killed.
Hitler's Germany, nearly 21 million people killed.
Japan's imperialism, nearly 6 million people killed.
Western colonization killed over 50 million people.
Pol Pot's Cambodia, funded by the U.S. government. 2 million people killed.
China's Communist Party, as many as 76 million people killed between 1949 and 1987.
And the list goes on and on. Demand to know why the Department of Homeland Security bought more than 1.6 billion hollow point bullets.
How many more people does government have to kill?
Enough.
Enough.
Demand an end to citizen disarmament.
As an American citizen,
as a patriot.
For your children.
Enough of the people laying down and letting government kill them en masse after disarming them, as they've done throughout history over and over again.
Now is the time.
It's time.
It's time to realize that when the government takes your guns, people die.
It's time to realize the biggest threat to you and your family is government.
It's time to recognize government is the greatest killer of all time.
Demand they show you the word hunting in the Second Amendment.
Demand our politicians uphold the Constitution and Bill of Rights as they swore to when they took office.
It's time for our leaders to read the Constitution.
It's time for our leaders to obey the Constitution.
The Constitution.
The Constitution.
Because a well-regulated militia with 10-round magazines wouldn't last very long.
So now you know the most dangerous thing to you and your family in the world is government.
Because mass murderers agree
Gun control works.
That's right. And I've been trying to tell you this. When I saw what happened at Waco, that was a preview of what's going to happen to here. But it's also, why weren't you asking, wait a minute, what gives you the right to raid a church, call it a compound, when it's a home for 17 little children? What gives you the right? Why? Our Constitution says we're not supposed to have troops on our streets, in our homes, and yet that's what you saw in Waco. And that was just the beginning, and I tried to warn you about that 20 years ago, and I've been demonized for that. I've been demonized for that for 20 years. I've had my businesses closed down, people calling me anti-Semitic, people calling me anti-government. If my government is killing my neighbors, then I am anti-government. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, it's coming full circle again. And we've got the same familiar killers planning on eager, not just planning, but eager to start World War III. And you, Americans, sitting in front of your television set, remain hypnotized by fraudulent TV authorities. The truth is, human society must be liberated from Jewish control or perish. Oh, there he goes with that anti-Semitic. Well, my grandmother was Jewish. I just want to stay below the radar. I don't want to call attention to myself. I don't want to have my neighbors calling me anti-Semitic. No, your neighbors, if they weren't hypnotized, if they weren't programmed by the television, they would be joining with you and saying, whoa, did you see what's happening with Russia, with Putin, with Afghanistan, with Turkey? All of these countries are being manipulated, incited into war. The Muslims, they tried to blame the Muslims for 9/11. It wasn't. It was Israel. It was the Jews. Then they want to tell you, well, it's not the Muslims, it's ISIS, it's ISIS. The ISIS, be afraid of ISIS, be afraid of ISIS. Before that, it was, the Russians are coming, the Russians are coming. Be afraid, be afraid. They want you fearful. Now, you've got to disabuse yourself of the notion that America is not controlled by Jews. It has been completely and ruthlessly for the past century or more. Prior to World War I, the Jews enlisted the help of Theodore Roosevelt to split the Republican vote and get the peace president, Woodrow Wilson, elected, who soon thereafter declared war on Germany, resulting in 17 million dead. Prior to World War II, the Jews faced the greatest threat to their worldwide financial hegemony after Adolf Hitler had evicted central bankers from Germany. Fortunately for the Jews, they already had a Jewish communist sympathizer in the White House who overrode the widespread peace sentiment in both America and Europe and created the worst war in human history with 80 million dead. In both these cases, it was Jewish control of the media that turned a peace-loving populace into dutiful soldiers, who sacrificed their lives in wars that never needed to be fought. Today we have presidents and presidential candidates surrounded by Jewish handlers and choking on Jewish lies. But the deciding factor is the media, which limit what can be discussed, since the foul media apparatus in the so-called free world is wholly run by Jews. We have no prospective presidential candidate who opposes the suicidal course of the American war machine as it ravages country after country at the behest of its Jewish masters. Now, folks, I'm not just somebody walking off the street. I've researched history. I'm on the board of directors of a college down in Texas. I helped start the preliminary schools, the Little Red Schoolhouse for homeschoolers, with my friend Dr. Jake Wade, Christian Bible College. And I've been with presidential candidates. I've traveled from sea to shining sea with the first Republican to sign up for the presidency in 1996. His name was Charles Collins, and I tell you that because you probably didn't hear about him because he didn't appear on the media. And every time he got up at a Republican convention, from Maine to California, and tried to tell the Republicans what the Federal Reserve was, a bunch of Jewish bankers, international bankers, that have perfected Mystery Babylon's money magic, how to make money out of nothing, how to take the gold, and they took all of your family's gold, all of its treasure, for $16 an ounce. You were forced by this communist president to turn your gold into the banks under penalty of law. They threatened you with jail if you didn't turn your gold in. $16 an ounce. As soon as the bankers had the gold, they doubled the price of gold to $32 an ounce. And what is it now? Now, I'll talk later maybe about Texas being the one state that is considering reclaiming its gold from the New York bankers. But you probably haven't heard of that on the Jewish-controlled media, ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN. Now, both World War II, World War I, in both these cases, it was Jewish control of the media that turned a peace-loving populace into dutiful soldiers who sacrificed their lives in wars that never needed to be fought. I was one of those people that volunteered for Vietnam in 1964, and for you trolls out there that try to say I was never in the Army, I've got my DD-214, RA 18691-506 was my DD-214. The only reason I didn't go to Vietnam is because maybe it was because I scored too high on the test for officers candidate school, but I was not. They felt that anybody with my IQ would question orders. They were probably right. Today we have presidents and presidential candidates surrounded by Jewish handlers and choking on Jewish lies. But the deciding factor is the media, which limit what can be discussed. And when I saw what the media was doing with the sacrifice, with the slaughter of 17 little children and their parents, grandparents, at little ranch, a little farm in Waco, I started the militia and I started my own media called the Free American Magazine. And at one time, Free American Magazine was in every bookstore, in Barnes & Noble and Books A Million. and it was having a real effect. And especially after 9/11 in 2001, when I referred to that on the air as an exaggerated case of Jewish lightning, and I told you the truth about 9/11, I told you who was behind it, the same guy that misplaced a few $1 trillion in the Pentagon. His name was Rabbi Dov Zakheim. And, of course, they came after me. I referred to it as an exaggerated case of Jewish lightning. The Jewish-controlled Port Authority in New York had 2 buildings on their hands that were condemned, basically. They were told there's nothing we can do about these. We can't go in. There's too much asbestos. We can't build scaffolding that high. It won't work. We can't do it. They got to come down. Well, that would have been a few $1 billion down the drain, but Larry Silverstein, another Jew, came to the rescue. He leased the Twin Towers, leased the shopping centers, leased building number 7, which you probably never heard of until years afterwards. I put it on the cover of my March 2004 issue of the Free American. And Larry leased it, insured it to the hilt, and brought them down. Now, the deciding factor in these wars. Now, we went to 2 wars. They tried to blame it on the Muslims. Wasn't the Muslims. Saddam Hussein wasn't a Muslim. Iraq, the only country mentioned more than Israel in the Bible. And remember, Israel is not the Israel that you see today. That was hijacked by the Ashkenazi Jews, by the ones that Jesus warned you about. Beware the Jews who say they're Jews but are not, or of the synagogue of Satan. Did you listen to that? Did any of your preachers listen to that? Okay, I got it. All right, that's still working. Good. I tried to tell you about this over 20 years ago, but I was demonized. They went after companies. They interfered. Somebody, I suspect the ADL, since they're the ones that accused me of being anti-government. They interfered in business deals. I had several magazines. One of them sold for $500,000. Signed the papers on Thursday. Friday, it went into the press release in Wall Street that a publicly traded company had bought the Thunder Riders magazine, the premier motorcycle magazine in Arizona. And Monday I walked into the office and the CEO is white and shaking and telling me he can't do it. He can't do it. It's too much, can't do it. Can't do it. All right. Okay, I see we have the usual conglomeration of people that just want to keep their head below the radar, so they don't even sign in with a name. They sign in with guest 159, 301, 169. And we've got somebody on the chat room, but they haven't hit 1. If you come into the chat room and you want to talk to me, you might yeah, Brother Clay from Guest 301. You're hiding under that. You're pretending to be a guest, and you're not. You're not. And you either come in under a name for you, or no. I know who you are. You chicken shit. You coward. From the 321 area code. That's why you won't put up there. Or if you do, it's a block number. So why would I give you a call? You're not worth talking to. You are either one of the most evil or deluded people in the world, or you're just a troll. You're just a troll. You're a Jew working out there to try to put me down, to try to tell people, to try to discourage any support that we've got. We've also got somebody from the 775 area code that hasn't hit one, that doesn't want to, that doesn't want to be known, or doesn't want to be talking, I guess. And unless you hit one, I won't bring you up. All right. 775 area code. Who do we have?
Hey, Clay, this is Art George.
Hello, Art. How are you, sir?
Good. I was just listening into hearing what your show is about today.
Well, I'm talking about the Jewish control of America right now, of the world, and they're starting World War III, Art. Now, Art George works with William Blair at Introspect, and sometimes we have 2 days of shows with the Introspect auditors. They try to get to the bottom of things. They try to find out who's doing what to who, why they're doing it. And they've been pretty successful of it. So you're certainly welcome here to interject anything. I've been talking about the media control. And this media control goes back before World War I, before World War II. And it was in effect when I was a kid. We were one of these affluent Americans that managed to get a TV set. Before that, I had radio. And I listened to Roy Rogers, The Lone Ranger, all kinds of cowboy movies, and they made the Indians the bad guys. The Indians were the terrorists. They are trying to do the same thing today with the militia, with the Patriot movement, even veterans who, like me, foolishly volunteered for Vietnam. And there was no reason to attack Vietnam. No reason at all. There was no real reason to attack the Native Americans that were here when Columbus got here, except to steal their land, to confiscate their land, to confiscate the livestock, to try to destroy their food supply. And these early settlers, maybe they weren't all Jews, but the Jews provided the ships that brought the black slaves over here, because the Indians wouldn't work for them. You want us to do what? You want us to tear down our forests, tear down our trees? And they were made to watch these cowboy hat Americans, wearing Americans, destroy their food supply. The American buffalo, the bison, was pretty well wiped out and left to rot. I mean, this fed the Indian tribes forever. They used every piece of that buffalo for something, the horns. And then they tried to justify it by letting you watch Hollywood Jewish-created movies starring Roy Rogers, Gene Autry, Hopalong Cassidy, and they tried to make the Indians to the bad guys. They did the same thing during World War II. They wanted to make the Germans into the bad guys. Why? Because the Germans said we're pulling out of this banking system. We're not paying you to issue our money. We'll issue our own money. Have I got anything wrong here, Art? Have I said anything?
No, Clay, you got pretty much everything in line. I really appreciate the time you've given William and I to put a lot of things out on there in perspective what we've done over the past few years, and what William's done in the past 40 years, and your history that time that you put in. It really makes a lot more sense to me listening to the history that you're talking about, because here in my country, over here in Washoe country, Lake Tahoe area, Nevada and California, our history with the immigrants that come into our land is just under 300 years. So our history with all of this stuff that you're talking about is just a blink of an eye. When you come talking about the gold and the silver and all of that, the commerce of this land, and then stealing the land and doing what the things that has done to not only my people but the whole population that exists here now, is very astounding that we can document so much history. And I know we have a solution, an idea of what we could do, but because the elimination of the information still is in process, but we are having a little success in educating ourselves, along with your show, being able to get out there to the population. Like I say, it's really appreciated, because you're not talking any lies. Everything you're saying is pretty right on.
Well, I wanted to talk about that especially because a few years back, I asked myself, after reporting on all this crap, after reporting on what the soldiers did at Waco, after reporting on the Jewish plots and schemes, everything from sinking the Titanic to be able to take over the banking system. The Titanic had the wealthiest people in the world on it. They sent them to the bottom of the sea. And more than that, I asked myself, how did we make it? How did the people make it 200 years ago? Before the TV, before the internet, how did we make it? How did we make it? And the answers I came up with were basically the self-sufficient family farm. I called them Liberty Villages. Because if we could grow our own food, generate our own power from the creeks, from the rainfall, from the wind, from the sun, we actually took some steps ahead scientifically. Not too far ahead, because this technology has been known to the people for hundreds of years, maybe even more than that. And this, I thought, well, the self-sufficient family farm is the basis of every civilization. And the American Indians, indigenous Americans, I really kind of prefer that than referring to them as Indians, since whoever gave them that name didn't know where the fuck they were. No, this
You were actually lost.
You got lost. They got lost somewhere along the lines. And the self-sufficient family farm is still it's really the answer. I designed something called Liberty Villages based on the fact that we could grow our own food, raise our own animals, and put those windmills up that we've had going across this country that provided us with water for hundreds of years. Nothing new here, nothing that innovative, but technology that works. And then when talking about this, I had a lady from Florida tell me, well, Clay, we've already done that. We've got these little towns across Florida. They're surrounded by farms and ranches, and we've got some solar now. We got solar around here. We certainly had the windmills here for hundreds of years. It's so we're kind of doing that now. I decided that these self-sufficient family farms are spread around small towns all around America, all across America. We don't have to move to the country. We don't have to move to another state. We don't have to move to another country. We've got everything we need right here, with the possible exception of the cooperation of the American people. And I got to tell you, when we talk about indigenous Americans, I feel like, Art, you're talking about me. It's not just the American Indians. It's not just the old farmers and ranchers. It's me. I was born in Texas. I took an oath to support the Constitution that was passed down to by our founding fathers years ago. I'm an indigenous American. Don't go to...
No,
yeah, go ahead.
I agree with you. I agree with you there. So,
now, what we're opposing here is the suicidal course of the American war machine as it ravages country after country at the behest of its Jewish masters. The signs are unmistakable. Amid all sides hypocritically preaching for peace, the Jewish media rage for war, twisting accounts and motives to favor strife as opposed to national rational negotiation. The Jews are not interested in logical discourse. They are only in favor of shedding blood, and always have been, and it's never their own. They use people like me. I volunteered for Vietnam. I wanted to go fight communism, but I didn't know what communism was. Communism was existent in America for well over 100 years. And every plank on the Communist Manifesto, I found out after I was discharged from the Army, every plank on the Communist Manifesto was intact in America today. And communism was nothing like it was supposed to be, like we were told it was, like the Russians were told, oh, we're taking over, this is going to be a good thing for you peasants out there. It wasn't. It was a way to murder them and get away from it by hiding behind the government they created, the Bolshevik government, the Bolshevik Revolution. And I believe, Art, that the same thing is happening here. What happened to the Indians, they were made into the bad guys while they were killing them and stealing their land. And they are doing the same thing today, and this is what Infraspect is really about. William Blair started Infraspect to investigate the politicians, the processes, and what he's come up with, he's found the communists, whatever name you want to put them on, they're lawyers. They're lawyers, and they're trying to take over all the tribes now. They want to turn what could be very productive Indian land It's all your land, but they gave you a reservation. I don't like that. And if you were free to go out there and hunt and grow your gardens without interference from government lawyers, we'd be a lot better off, in my opinion. Yours, Art.
Yeah, I agree with you, Eric. Clay, I think what the bigger picture is when all of the people came to be where we are today, with the nations and nations of people that live in America now throughout the world, that there's one underlining message I think that we're leading towards. You know, the Indian nations almost was eliminated from a lot of tribes were eliminated from their original homelands. So those areas are now up for grabs in a sense.
Those
tribes that did exist,
sorry to interrupt you here.
Like my tribe here, is there's a lot of natural resources and assets here that are available for communities and families and groups to be able to self-sustain themselves. But the underlying motive is they use the masses and the ignorance of people to continue to move forward so fast that they don't slow down enough to realize that there is enough room on this earth for us all. There is enough assets, natural assets, for us to survive off the land, as long as we realize that the reason that they say we don't have this stuff is because they're poisoning the food, or they're eliminating the opportunity for people to have areas that we can survive on a self-sufficiency or self-reliance basis. And I think that's why education and the idea of really slowing down and really, I listen to your program, and I listen to a lot of different programs, David Icke and all these different ones that are out there, and I hear the masses are kind of waking up, and I hear them trying to formalize a ideal to a direction that's going to be a formidable foundation for this country to create a basis, just like the Indian people had before anybody had come to this land, of self-reliance and self-sufficiency. But what's missing in all of that is the foundation of respect and honor which the Indian people had for land, animal, air, and water. The masses want to move forward and say, well, we're going to live this way now, and we're going to have consciousness, and we're going to respect and all this and that. But yet the Indian nations are still excluded from that. We have Indians all over in all of these towns throughout America, and we don't hear anything from them because the way that we were treated and annihilated in this country. I mean, our families were wiped out. In Washoe country, it just happened in the 1860s, where they wiped out all the men of my tribe, and there were only women, children, and old people left, and we hid them in the mountains. And after the men were all wiped out, the cavalry rode out in the mountains looking for the rest of the Washoe people to just wipe us all out totally. And they couldn't find them, so they just left them for dead. And then they went destroyed the villages and destroyed
before they do it to you.
All right, Truth Radio.
That way, if it looks like they're going to do it under me, I do it under them first.
Truth Radio, I'm still broadcasting my show here. I'm still broadcasting here. We just got disconnected for a second. Shut the hell up!
That is not the purpose of government.
Shut the hell up. Truth Radio, I do not want to hear your bullshit. This is my show. Either broadcast my show and shut up, or I'll quit broadcasting on Truth Radio. You got that? This is the kind of interruptions I won't stand for. Yeah, hang on, Art. We're still... Hang on, we're still trying to get it back up. Somehow Truth Radio disconnected us. We're trying to get the call back here. We'll try to get trying to bring Truth Radio back up. Got another interruption. We had Skype drop us here for a second.
The police don't warn the police that you're going to go in there and take over and replace them. If the police show up, you're bringing a couple thousand people and the police will be eliminated.
All right, Truth Radio, Truth Radio. This is the Free American Hour. I don't know what you're broadcasting, but stop it. Stop it. Get off of it right now.
All the government has
you dumb son of a bitches.
People.
Dumb son of a bitches. We won't broadcast on Truth Radio no more. Every time something happens, we go off for half a second, and then they try to bring it back up. All right, how about Blog Talk? Are we still on here? You got it? Let's see, we'll try it one more time, see if they can get it together. We got, normally...
You know, Clay?
Yes, sir.
You know, I think about this way, I've heard a few people trying to call in on you and talk with you and then give their opinion, you know? And I think of it like this. William has taught me this. It's really sometimes good to let these people say what they say and really hear what they're saying, because sometimes they're just not as educated as they need to be, and to realize it's better to hear what they're saying.
Hang on just a minute. Truth Radio! Truth Radio! Truth Radio! This is the Free American Hour! Shut it off! Shut it off right now!
To nullify anything that they're doing that isn't within the limitations of the Constitution. Article 1, Section 10 lays out basically what the federal government took from the states as powers that they can do. And Article 1
Okay.
Welcome to Blog Talk Radio.
Hold on.
Please enter your host pin when finished. Press the pound key.
To start your show now, press 1. To hear important instructions,
Since it appears you're calling back into a live show, we're reconnecting you now.
Alright. We've got Blog Talk Radio up here. We've got Crusade up here. And I've dropped Truth Radio because their manager there can't get their shit together while I'm doing the show. If I break off for just a second, I come back. And hang on a minute here. Let me see if I can... Let's see if we can get something else here. We'll bring up, I'll try to get the people that are running Truth Radio now. We had a great show. I've got Art George with me. You still with me, Art?
Yeah, I think.
Okay. This,
yeah, it's interesting how people try to override conversation that's going on already, and if they want to talk, they should at least give the people the time to talk, you know?
well, this is not supposed to be happening at all. I've got 2 hours here, and then they bring up another show. And that's just, that ain't right. So let's talk to the owner of the station and see what we can do.
Well, like you say, sometimes they don't like to hear what you got to say, or Clay, and this program, you know, and they just want to override it sometimes, I think.
That may be.
You know.
That may be. But
I've been learning a lot about this cyber technology and stuff when you're in the media and all that, and sometimes when you're talking, it seems like people don't want to hear it, but at the same time, they want to be heard, so, you know, it goes both ways.
Okay, I got 3 phones here. Let me see if I can find one that works. But I'll get back to this in just a second. I think we were actually on a roll, or were, and I want to continue that.
Wherever you want to start there, Clay, it's all partly history, and we sit in the position we're in because we're not giving up, and we're always willing to make a better standing for those of us that have survived, and those people that want to come back and find the original position that humans have to take in order to gain the experience here on Earth that's going to be the best for all of us.
Well, that's exactly where we were getting, and that's exactly where I want to get back. Let's see if yeah, I've been trying to get back on my show after we got cut off for a second, and I've got some other show that's playing on there. They won't get off. I finally hung up. I've got a guest on here.
Were you on?
What?
Were you on?
I was on, and then we had a Skype had a blurb in it, and by the time I got back hooked back up, Truth Radio was broadcasting a whole other thing.
All right, let me find out why. Let me get on it. Bye.
All right, I'm up on Skype.
Okay, bye.
All right, we'll see if that happens. Now, what I was talking about before we got distracted over that crap is that my plan years ago, almost 10 years ago, I had a little 5 acres out in the middle of New Mexico, 10 miles from the Trinity site. And I came up with a plan called Liberty Villages, small town America, surrounded by farms, and it was a good plan. It was a good plan. We could grow our own food, generate our own power from solar, from wind, and in doing so, we didn't need the government. We didn't need the bankers. And I examined the cost of cabins. I looked at straw bale homes, a lot of things like that. And the design that what I found would work best for a little village was teepees. And I figured that your people had been using them for thousands of years, and they really had a lot over the solid wood houses. First of all, you could roll them up and move them. If you wanted to see another area of your state or the country, you could roll them up and move them, and they stayed quite warm in the winter, quite cool in the summer, and they were more inexpensive than paying $10,000 for a bunch of sticks thrown together. And so I planned and advertised my Liberty Villages. I'll be right back. Hello. Do I have Truth Radio now? I've got Blog Talk And I've got crusade here. All right. Maybe it's working now. No. Let me add back the things that everybody dropped when we had to take another call. God almighty. Let me, do I still have you on? I don't think so, but let me see. See if we can get the show started again. We got Crusade, TRN, Blog Talk. Okay, absolutely nothing working here. Let's try it again.
Welcome to Blog Talk Radio. Please enter.
The PIN you entered does not match the PIN you have on file for your account. Please re-enter your PIN. The PIN you entered does not match the PIN you have on file for your account. To start your show now, press 1. To hear important...
It appears that the host has already dialed into the show. Only one host is allowed per show. Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio.
Oh, bullshit. Art, do I still have you here?
Yes, Clay, I'm still here.
Okay. Well, let me see if I can get anything else back up. Okay. Yeah, Truth Radio needs some tech assistance here. And it ain't working here. It ain't working here. Well, you know what? To hell with Truth Radio and all the other ones. If we can't get on there, I'm sorry about that. But again, the thing that I came up with was using the teepees, and I figured the Indians, so-called Indians, were certainly aware of how to make them and how to make them right. A few thousand years of history on it. And I figured if somebody's, an American's driving down a remote highway and they see 10 teepees lit up, maybe a yurt or longhouse lit up, and a sign out there that said vacancy and coffee. Food. Organic food. Not genetically modified crap. That people would stop just to see what it was like. And by doing that, we have a vehicle to teach people what it's all about.
You're right, Clay. You know, there's a venue there that we're talking about that is really valuable. The communities that are at large here that could really benefit from the voice of the original people, original nations, original indigenous people. But the foundation of our existence, the original voice, or the formal voice of land, animal, air, and water, comes with the actual facing of these atrocities that you're talking about that are brought about by the federal government, or these agencies that are these corporate agencies that are directly involved with capitalism or stealing and lying and all of that. The original nations, well, like I said before we got cut off, was we have Indian nations throughout this whole country. And in the cities, you know, a lot of them are going into casinos, but a lot of them aren't being recognized. And those that are going into casinos, it seems to me, from what I've seen so far, is they're getting further away from the indigenous connection to the land. And the voice that you have about your Liberty Village and the idea of teepees and coffee and all of that really has a place, because back before anybody came into this country, there was no history of homeless or hungry. And so now that we're in the today or the modern day, there's so much value in homeless and hungry that the capitalists have learned how to take advantage of that too. And so what I'm understanding from being involved with educating and learning is that what William's saying is there's a design that is right there in front of us that has been showing us what is being done and how they're going about doing it, using the media, using the legal descriptions and mixing it with common dictionary words. People have to really get educated, and I think one real important thing is here to understand is, just like your show, Clay, I mean, I've heard you have a few different guests on your show that have parallel ideals, and I think what would really be a really positive venture is to have a show one of these days with you and have 2 or 3 of your past guests that have the parallel views, as well as William and I and some of the auditors we have, the Indian auditors we have, because our voices really need to conjugate so that we can really see that we really do have a common direction that we all would like to head in, but we're not coming together. We're all taking our separate places and really standing strong to it. But there is a common place that we can go to where this idea of homegrown self-reliance and self-sufficiency can begin a path.
I've got a guest on here in my chat room that wants me to ask you what your thoughts are on modernizing the teepee. Now, what I visualize here when I was putting this together is the idea that, first of all, you take solar and wrap it around the top of the teepee so you get sun almost all the time. What's that? Oh, okay. And oh, by the way, the from the state, the food things coming into the P.O. box. You put that solar around the top of it, and you wrap black tubing all around the base. That provides you with your hot and cold water. Your solar provides you with the method to recharge your cell phones and your internet sites. And you've got all of this acreage around you that you use for raising animals, raising your chickens, raising your goats, and a lot more for raising your cattle. I mean, to me, that and you've got these teepees that you can put up for very little, and the instead of buying them from a company up in Colorado, you buy them from the reservations, and those provide housing for veterans, for homeless, for elderly people. I don't want to go. I'm 69 years old. You know, you'd have to tie me up and to put me in one of these nursing homes. I don't want that. I want the sun around me. I want the wind in my hair. I want to be able to sit by the creek and toss a line in and hook a fish that's not contaminated by mercury. And by putting these teepees up for rent, just for a night, come stay here, eat in our restaurant, see what organic food tastes like, see what homegrown chickens that haven't been tortured taste like. We could build a whole new paradigm for the average city folk. I swear, if we were able to do this, and a city folk stops by to have lunch or spend a night, they would never check into a Hilton hotel again. That's my opinion on it. And I think when I came up with this over 15 years ago, they tried to kill me over this. Okay, now I'm going to take a quick break here, try to get back on with Truth Radio. Yeah, no chips allowed in those chickens. That's right, David. So hold on just a second, Art. You stay there on Blog Talk. I don't even know if I can get out of here. It ain't letting me get out. This thing, when they interrupt this call here, everything gets screwed up, and I can't call back in because it tells me I'm already on there twice. So we'll just keep going here. They are able to hear this, and we've got one of our guests in from Europe, and another guest in from Canada. Farmer Phil, you ought to call in, Farmer Phil, because you're doing this in Canada. Now, I think of setting on one of these Liberty Villages up down here in the south where it's pretty warm, but the Native Americans, the indigenous Americans, they lived in Canada, they lived in Washington, they lived in Wyoming, they lived in Alaska, the same way that I'm proposing now. And with the technology that we have today, with the solar, with the wind, with the little chips, they don't take much electricity, do they? Don't take much electricity at all to keep your cell phones working, to keep your internet working. I don't think this is any far out trip. I think this and I've got one link on my website that a guy in San Francisco, he does farming on street corners, on vacant lots. He says that growing your own food, non-genetically modified food, is like printing your own money. Because people will buy your food from you, and they can pay. There's a number of different ways that we can pay. Up in Colorado, up in New York, they've got they're printing their own money. They're printing their own money. It's called Ithaca Hours, I think they call it, up in New York. In Colorado, it's they've got their own name for it, money. They make it kind of pretty, and you don't have to use the United States banker Jewish dollars. You don't have to do that. What do you think, Art? Art, you still with me?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
You know, Clay, I was thinking when you were saying that, we keep coming back to the same thing. Everybody can do a lot of things in this country, but we're missing the point that the land does not belong to the individuals. Everybody's going to have to pay tax at some point, and they still continue to pay. If they don't pay, they can get their land taken away. Now, when you're looking at some of the land that the original people had acquired, like the allotment land, I have allotment land up here in Nevada, and it's a tax-exempt land. And that is a resource that can be available also for a really useful venture that has to do with some of the ideas you have of growing food or business or opportunities. But what I'm looking at is the opportunities that the original people have available to them can really help a lot of the American dream that really isn't what it seems to be today. Because if you don't have money, you really can't dream. You have to go to work and you have to pay your bills, you have to buy your food, and you have to pay your taxes. And so, just like when we told you at the show the last week, we delivered our identity theft document to Hillary Clinton. Also, I delivered the document to the Nevada legislature, and there's 62 filings to senators and legislature members. To this day, today, I still haven't received any reply from any of them. So, it's really going to take the leadership to really, those people that are voted into these positions or these representatives of the state and local places and government to really get motivated in supporting this kind of a direction instead of the individuals trying to take it on their own. I know there's a lot more to that than what I can see, because I'm only limited in the amount of education I have with the history of this world direction. And like I said with William, how he has explained it has really made a lot of sense to really understand the ins and outs of what it is we're dealing with here. Because like I asked you before you told me the rest of the stuff here was, what would you be interested in putting a show together here with some of your past guests to allow us to all have a voice together on the same show to really base our thoughts together, just as we did in the old days when the Indian people were together. When we made decisions or when we dealt with something, we went back to council. Here in Washoe country, we got 4 directions here. We got Hongalti, Tongalti, Wellmelti, and Pawalu. Those are 4 geographical areas, 5,500,000 square miles of acres, that each one of those areas were managed by those different groups of Washoe. And so we never had one chief here. We had head men. And those head men came together, bringing in their voice of what goes on in their area, management-wise, and what is available and the opportunities that could be in that area that they came from. Now, we're talking about America now. We're talking about a lot of ideas and opportunities that really could be beneficial, but we got to watch ourselves for what is really controlling us. This country belongs to those that have said they have conquered it and taken it. And so we have to deal with that subject before we can go off into an area of trying to develop a venture that's going to provide food and shelter. What do you think about that?
Warming the coffee up, coming right back here. I have no problem having people on my show that I've had before. A lot of them have had a lot of good input. The problem is that greed takes over, ignorance takes over, and so you get people that, well, I'm a patriot, but the next email I get from them tells me how we got to support Israel. No, the Israel is part of the problem. When you study the history, you reveal that we've had that the whole Jewish sine qua non in Syria is getting rid of popular Syrian, elected Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, because he prevents the Jewish state from being completely surrounded by such sycophantic pseudo-states such as Israel, Libya, Turkey, the Gulf states, especially Saudi Arabia, which is only now being revealed as a nation of secret Jews. And plus, the fall of Syria would mean the start of a real war against Iran. I have studied Iran and looked at the people there. They could be from New York. They could be from California. You know, some of them are Muslims. So what? So what? As long as the Muslims aren't trying to take over and dictate what America's supposed to be, as long as America is not trying to dictate to the native people here in America, I don't have any problem with them. As long as they're not trying to... What's that? Go ahead.
Go ahead. I really believe that the reason that we've all come together in this land, you know, in the very beginning, whether, you know, the Columbus or whoever it was that came in the beginning fell asleep at the wheel and crashed into the rock over there on the East Coast, it ended up in this land. What really the bottom line is, this country, as great as it is, and the opportunity that we've now got provided to us, we got to rise above that now and really take the position that we have right now, here and now. What we have at our disposal is those supporters and those that have the intelligence or the knowledge to be able to sit down with us in a council and start with a grassroots idea here. You know, I mean, even with just your show itself can really benefit that opportunity. And besides what's going on in the world, and besides what people's opinions and thoughts are, the bottom line to us is we really have the opportunity to create something like that, Clay.
Well, I think the all the plans and all the study I've made, there's more happening, and I don't even know how to put it together in a place so that you can understand. But there's technology out there. Two guys won a Nobel Prize by inventing a new substance. It's called graphene, and what they've done is taken pencil lead and turned it into a substance that conducts electricity better than copper, that is stronger than steel. And imagine if you made your TPs out of that. The whole substance of the TP would absorb the sunlight, would turn it into electricity. And what an incredible thing to do. And you put it up just for the cost You don't have to take canvas and hope that it holds together. You take something that's stronger than steel and conducts electricity and works as a solar. This is just...
Yep, that's exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to the holding hands of the nations. The Indian nations need to hold hands with the people that are in this country. I mean, I find out that some of these countries some of these businesses in this country started off with a couple of people, a couple of people sitting down talking, even bringing out their ideas. I think the same thing where you say it's so huge that some of these things that we have to deal with is so huge you wouldn't know where to start. Well, that's what I'm talking about, is a round table of those that have like-minded ideals, as well as having the courage to speak their individual liberty. It really makes a lot of sense to me. All my life I've always waited for a council of this magnitude. My elders used to tell me a long time ago when I was a kid, and I always want to carry on the traditions, the songs and the language and the cultural ways that we had here. And I always come into opposition as the old people were dying off, and I said that it was great that I picked up these things and that I was carrying on. But then I turn around and have a conflict with the younger generations, or the ones a little older than me, that were the kids of the elders, but they're the parents that were older than me. And I was just a kid, and they were parents at the time, and they would always discourage me and say, "Who do you think you are? What do you think you're doing? That's not the way anymore. It's old days. That's never going to be the same anymore." And then nowadays, after all that discouragement, the old people used to tell me, "Don't get discouraged, you might be alone for a while, but one day people are going to pick up, and they're going to want to go back to these ways, because these simple ways are the best ways, because you don't exclude the natural world, because no matter how far we go in progress in the future, that we're not going to ever be able to leave behind the earth. We're not going to leave behind the animal, the trees, the air, and water. We need to put them in a category that no matter how we decide things, that they're included. And with this country, the way I see it, the masses and the cities and all that, people aren't really understanding what it is they're facing. They're not realizing that our land and the water and the air are being poisoned. There's no places for the animal because nobody's thinking about those things. And so when the old people used to tell me that, to keep carrying this stuff on, I got to a point where there was no more old people left here, hardly, to where I was all left alone. And I was persecuted, and I was talked. A lot of times I hear you talk, and I feel like the same way that people talked about me, the same way they talk about you, that who do you think you are, and, you're this and you're that, when, I look at it today and people are going, hey, those values were really good in those days. How can we bring that back? And, I've been raised to know that the family structure is really important. And in this country, I've noticed in communities, there'd be a whole community of people and living in the same place, and nobody knows each other. Nobody likes each other. Nobody wants to be involved with each other. They just want to stay in their own little spot. But yet the place they live is affected by that division. And what I was told my whole life was, one day if my offspring make it, could you tell them what we wanted to know? And what that was family, was togetherness, was camaraderie, was working together, was respect of each other's voice, honoring the family next to you. And when you talk, you didn't just talk for yourself, you talked about those that weren't even there, so that they were included in case they showed up. They wouldn't have they wouldn't be without. They would have the same equal share that we all were born with here. And I really think that that's what's most important in this life today is for a generation or a group of people to begin a very positive foundation for that value system, that morals and those principles to be included back into our decision making, whether it be real small, such as this community village that you're talking about. You know, that's really a good direction to focus on, but we have to do it an area at a time. And it can be done because it's something that can provide people with a place to live and provide a place where people can go and eat. And you can have a little bit of the ability to work for their meals, you know, by helping out. So, you know, it's really important for me to try to convey this, you know, and I talk to William about this all the time, and it's about just the strength of what we have at our fingertips here in this country now is to create a roundtable of like-minded people to be able to bring forth some of the ideals that we really need to be talking about here, but not exclude what it is we have to face, because there's a lot of things that we're not even looking at that are in the scope of this design also, you know.
Well, William is in a good position with what he's created with Introspect and with you auditors to iron this out and spell it out. We could, we don't need any new technology. We've got new materials. You know, we didn't have internet 20 years ago. We couldn't communicate the way we do now. And we didn't have graphene 20 years ago. We didn't have graphene 10 years ago. That's and they've just found out how to make it inexpensively this month. So we've got all this now. What we need is a structure to put it together. And we've got again, that's already there. It works in Europe. It's called cooperatives. And I don't see any reason it wouldn't work here. We could have the Washoe tribe over here, the Sioux tribe over here, and the Texans over here. All in our own villages, all in our own environment. You want to go to a rodeo? Go over to the Texas, and let's just use the term the U.S. government gave us. Go over to the Texas compound. Go over to the Washoe compound. You want to learn how to fish? You want to learn how to hunt? Go to this. Check this out. You want to learn to grow food? Here's where community garden. This is where we're going to work, and they have made some progress in some of your supermarkets, in some of your supermarket chains. They've got they're starting to grow their vegetables on the roof, in greenhouses on the parking lot, in greenhouses on the roof. So whatever you pick today, whatever you pick up at the store was grown today. It's a different way of thinking this, and you don't have to have the gasoline from the Rockefellers to power the trucks. You got runners that bring it down, elevators that bring it down from the roof and put it in the store. You buy your food there. We're talking about practical answers used in everyday life. And again,
exactly. Exactly, and you also have, when you come together with people like this, you also have those that can protect each other from the areas that we don't necessarily look at when we're thinking about we're helping each other to provide food and place to live. But there's also those that will be in the circle that can help us to protect us from the legalities that are forced upon us through the venues of capitalism and government. You know, the stuff that you talk about all the time, that the things they don't tell us until we try to do something, and they say it's against the law, or you can't do it this way, you got to do this and you got to do that. You know, those are really important things also that we have to include when we're venturing into these areas that you're talking about.
At these, you know, one of the things I found that I really missed was sitting around the campfire. Sitting around the campfire, roasting some hot dogs or marshmallows or chicken, you know, and maybe smoking a joint there, and just talking with each other. The computer is a double-edged sword. It doesn't, it's a good thing. It's a good thing in a way to use it. A gun's a good thing if you're using it for hunting or protecting yourself or defending your country. But
oh yeah, what I really miss too about the campfire thing there, Clay, is when you're sitting around the campfire, there's life in fire, and the smell of the smoke, and the being outside, and the being together. That's really important for the human experience, to be with each other. And the computer stuff is a good thing as long as we use it for what it's for, and not overuse it to where we ignore each other like we do now. I mean, I see people standing next to each other with phones in their hands, and they're talking on their phones or text messaging other people, and they're not even talking to each other. You know, it's crazy how, you know, we've gone so far in advancing ourselves in this design that we're missing the one thing that is really the most important part, is not excluding the human experience from what we've learned. I mean, for hundreds of years we've lived here on Earth. Lived and died, and the more we experience, the more we learn, the more we add to the information source. Where are those seers? Where are those visionaries that bring that information together? Back in the old days, those kind of people came together and shared their information so that the rest of the population, the communities, and the families could receive that information.
Well, you know, we had that here, Art. We had that here in the form of preparedness expos. I've spoken at them. I've had a lot of my guests come there. They brought their books there to sell. They brought their products there to sell. And they got to meet everybody and talk to everybody. And people started realizing that Clay Douglas ain't just a name on the radio. I ain't a movie star just waiting for their makeup room here. We're real people. We're real people, and we got real concerns. And I started this whole radio show, this magazine, because I cared about my fellow Americans. And I don't care, it's just like I said, I don't care who your grandmother slept with, Art. I don't care. You know, I don't care whether she was Jewish. I don't care whether she was Indian. I don't care whether she was a Yankee or a Southerner. What I care about is what is happening now. How are we putting this together? How are we working together? How can we work together? What else can we do?
Yeah, me too. That's exactly, you and I got the same thing. I tell William this all the time when we talk to the other auditors. We seem to all have the same thing that we're facing in our different territories, whether it be Blackfeet or Lakota or Klamath or Tlingit or Nez Perce or Six Nations. We all have the same thing, but we're being attacked all at different levels. and for us to all have some sort of a place to meet up, even if it's on a simplest thing as your show, would be able to put it on record that there are those that can sit together and be able to communicate a system that could be developed through principles and values, bringing together a foundation for what I believe is the true American dream. Because in the beginning, when people said the American dream, the Indian people were left out, so it's not our dream. But yet we're here today, and I don't see how we can continue to be left out when we have a place in this place also. So if we can formulate some sort of a place where this groups can come together like this is what we're after. This is what I believe we're after.
Well,
this is why we've survived. This is how we've been able to avoid the bullet, in a sense, you know.
Art, we actually have done this. I have done this. I have a tribe. It's in one area in Texas. It's called the Bandidos. In Arizona, California, it's called the Hells Angels. And we go to these powwows called Sturgis, called the Love Ride, called, whatever it is around the country. The bikers get on their motorcycles or steel horses, and we ride to an area, and we get to shop, we get to trade, we get to talk, we get to share the music that we've created, and it's a comforting feeling. I mean, I've got CD after CD here. Mike Jones has done some wonderful work talking about yesterday 1903, when William and Artie built the first Harley, and got other music that I really enjoy. Chris Ledoux talks about the rodeo, going to the rodeo, riding over, 8-second ride. Give me that 8-second ride. But we need a little bit more horsepower, 8 seconds or 80 miles an hour. It's we've got a culture here. That's why I think that the Jews and the media, the Jews control the media, they want to put down the bikers. And I sat here, as soon as I got to Texas, maybe it was their way of countering any effect that I might have, but they shot 9 bikers. They arrested almost 200 motorcycle riders. Because why? Some of them were wearing a patch that I helped create 25, 30 years ago. A patch. Yeah, my club was the Ghost Riders. And it was just a family. So there were 8 or 10 or 12 of us in the family, and then we had others that wanted to join, and they became the Bandidos. They shot them. The police set them up and shot them at a meeting, just a general meeting. So they're afraid of these bikers. They're afraid of the Indians, so-called Indians. Because you've got 2,000 years on them in history. You could do more. And if people understood this, and we all worked together, we could put these villages together. We could use the teepees, the technology, the wind. All you need is a windmill sticking up out of the top of that teepee. To me, I think it's just a great design, and I like it better than these cabins because, evil spirits can hide in those corners, they told us.
No, that's why they built round buildings, because that way it could never catch you.
That's right.
Clay, I was thinking too, when you just said that, all these different groups that you just named, that's exactly what I was thinking of conveying to you what I'd like to see is, let's say, a representative from each one of those groups or bodies to be on a show that we can put on record that we all came together, and I believe we really would come up with a venue that we all can really benefit from, and actually show the rest of the world in this country that people of so many different walks of life can actually come together and come up with a plan.
The bikers and the Indians have a lot in common. And, I mean, you can see this at Sturgis. I mean, when I originally planned this, I was going to do one of these villages. But you can put it up. You can put it up for a week. You don't have to have it permanent until people see how well it works. And the place to do it, you strap those teepees, you strap the solar generator and your pickup and your truck or next to the trailer you're carrying your motorcycle on, and take it to Sturgis, take it to Daytona Beach. Set it up on the beach. And suddenly you can demonstrate to people that we don't have to have the little boxes. We don't have to get more stuff. We don't have to have more stuff to fill up those houses. We don't have to have that. There's a song I like. I do it in karaoke sometimes. That says, I met a woman down south on the border. He says, I had a reputation for not staying very long. Everything I owned fit into the saddles on my bike. And I could see that, solar. I mean, my watch. I got a watch that I'm wearing right now. I never have to wind it. Runs off solar. We really have the answers here, but what we need to do is to be able to demonstrate this. And the way to do it again, Daytona Beach, Laconia, Harley Rendezvous in New York, the Love Ride in California, and Arizona. We could do the prison runs. These events, and in Texas, we've got the Lone Star Rally. Texas is just a breath or two away. If we get to these rallies and we could demonstrate what we want and what we could be, it would take off like a rocket. Now that's
I see that.
That's what we need to, Here's 12 members of the Banditos. You got that space right over there. You tell us what you got to sell. Show us what you got to sell, and we're gonna build this village for you to show you what it could be like to live in this. All you gotta do is rent it. You rent it for you, and you go to Sturgis. You rent a big friggin' tent from one of our Jewish buddies there. I've been told they've taken over Daytona. I've got merchants that have shops in Daytona. The Jews come in, rent a big building, and discount all their merchandise to compete with the American bikers. So, again, it's a matter.
I think there's a nice working relationship that could happen with the people that came into this country and the original people that were here first. There's areas that even like you say, Sturgis. There's so much area down there that gathering places could be developed for different types of gatherings besides Sturgis, or even just coincide with Sturgis, that the Indian population could be involved with. They always struggle to try to put something together to provide themselves with a venue of business to utilize some of that funds that go through that with the bikers that go through there. I mean, how many bikers go through Sturgis? And the Indian people struggle trying to develop stuff because of the governmental aspect of corporatism that's involved down there. So I mean, when we're talking about traditionalists, we're talking about the people that haven't given up their sovereignty. And most tribes, corporate tribes, believe they have sovereignty when they really don't, because they adopted a constitution by the federal government that restricts them from doing a lot of business outside of the standard of which the government provides them with that document or that ability. And when you're talking about sovereignty, the original people like the Lakotas, who haven't given up anything, have never sold out, they still haven't been afforded that opportunity because they're still struggling. And just by us getting together and speaking together on a radio show like yourself, we could probably come up with some real positive information for those tribes that have some real good opportunities to have a relationship with the greater society that's around them.
I think that's right. And it's really what I've been doing. I'm not changing, and I'm not really changing. I am applying the same principles. I somewhere here on my computer here, I've got the virtues of the Lakota. And it's something that we all are to be paying attention to. Matter of fact, I'll see if I can find it, but seven virtues of the Lakota. People may say it's difficult to adhere to today, but let's see, that may be, but first of all is praying, finding spirituality by communicating with your higher power. This communication between you and Tunkasia without going through another person or spirit. I've told people, you can talk to God yourself. You can talk to the Great Spirit yourself. You don't need the rabbi. You don't need the preacher. You don't need the priest. And then we've got Wahola, respect for self, higher power, family, community, and all life. Exactly what we're talking about creating with these Liberty Villages. Waonsila, caring and compassion, love, caring, and concern for one another in a good way, especially for the family, the old ones, the young ones, the orphans, the one in mourning, the sick ones, and the ones working for the people. Exactly what I want for the veterans of our country. I don't want to send them out to kill anybody else. I don't want them killing Indians. I don't want them killing Germans. I don't want them killing Muslims. I don't want that. And then we've got Wajiki, that's honesty and truth with yourself, higher power, and others with sincerity. Wawaki, generosity and caring, helping without expecting anything in return, giving from the heart. Wahwala, humility, we have a spirit, we're not better or less than others. Waksapi, wisdom. Practice with knowledge comes wisdom. I think these are 7 virtues, 7 values that we need to learn from.
I totally agree with you. When you said that, I'm glad that you, when you said the Lakota, some of the Lakota values there, then you said what you felt. I keep coming back to this. There's a lot more commonality in ourselves, no matter how different our upbringing was or where we come to it in life. There's a place that we can all meet together, and I believe that time is coming.
I hope so. I hope so. That's what we're working for. Now I'm going to finish up this article that I did with about the familiar killers eager to start World War III. Now, what I've given you here is a choice. I've given you the choice. Thank you, Art, for coming on my show and helping me with this. Because you're
welcome, Clay.
The Native American values, we wouldn't have had Thanksgiving without them. You, the Native Americans, the indigenous Americans, taught us about Thanksgiving, showed us, and even our Constitution comes from a northern tribe there that we based it on. Our ancestors based this on. And I'm going to add this. We're talking about, it's all on the news about Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. And he's being demonized, and they got wars, and then they're going to try, as soon as somebody fights for Syria, then they're going to be branded as a terrorist over here. And the fall of Syria would mean the start of the real war with Iran that they've been pushing for decades. Similar masquerades happened at the beginnings of World Wars I and II, when populations on both sides of the conflict expressed an overwhelming desire for peace, but the Jewish-controlled leader of the Western aggressor states, backed by the deceptively partisan leaders of the Jewish media that supported them, overrode popular sentiment and stacked the deck with misleading accounts and fabricated horror stories that produced, counting the two world wars, almost 100 million dead. The same situation is happening again. The ISIS combatants are trying to overthrow the duly elected government of Syria. They're funded by the United States and its truculent allies, even as the President of the United States swears justifiably skeptical to a justifiably skeptical public that he is leading a coalition to stop these barbaric rebels he is covertly funding. It's a colossal disgrace for the American people not to have Barack Obama arrested for treason for aiding the enemy and betraying his country in such an egregious way. But then he has committed numerous acts that would have qualified him for such a charge, starting with running for office in the first place. This double dealing is in itself a repeat of the U.S. creation of the Al-Qaeda terrorist group, falsely blamed for the 9/11 atrocity. The Al-Qaeda fantasy was named as the enemy in both the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, as the Arab mercenary gang of thugs was funded by the U.S. at the same time America pretended to be fighting them. The formula was a howling success that bamboozled a semi-conscious U.S. public, so Obama and his Jew handlers decided it would work again in Syria. So with ISIS it has, until the Russians got involved. The Jew-controlled U.S. tried to start World War III last year. In 2014 it ordered a revolution in the Ukraine on the very border of Russia. Still today the U.S. media refer to the event as a Russian invasion, ignoring the ugly fact that the Ukraine uprising was fueled by Israeli commandos and American money, creating murder victims that were primarily Russian-speaking Ukrainians. To the everlasting credit of Russian leader Vladimir Putin, that he did not take the bait then and respond with a massive invasion to regain the territory that had long been a part of the Soviet Union. Such an effort would have possibly ignited World War III. Instead, Putin merely sent unofficial but vital aid to the beleaguered residents of eastern Ukraine that enabled them to retain their relative independence, something they continue to try to preserve. Now, Putin faces the same situation again in Syria, where his Russian military has turned the tide against these vicious Western-supported mercenaries who seek to make Syria a vassal state under the control of Israel and the U.S. But Russia's patience has been pushed to the brink, not only by the lies of the U.S. leaders and their public relations ghouls who pose as independent media, but from Israel shooting down one of its airliner, and from Turkey shooting down one of its fighter bombers and lying about the circumstances surrounding this suspicious event. The biggest lie seemed to be Turkey's, and whether the Russian bomber in chasing ISIS rebels was actually in Turkish airspace, but an even bigger lie encompassing the whole affair was revealed in the question of who is buying the oil the ISIS rebels are selling, a question that appeared to be answered when Russia retaliated for the loss of its bombers by obliterating a caravan of oil tankers headed to Turkey from ISIS-held oil facilities in eastern Syria. People are slowly learning that anything and everything the U.S. and its NATO allies says is a lie, but whether Americans are brave enough to recognize the third fact is really a key factor in whether or not World War III will begin. If Americans can recognize that their leaders, utterly controlled by Israel, have been lying to them for years, we can probably stop World War III, but they show no signs of being anywhere near that brave, so it would be prudent to fear the worst due to the intractable inertia of the overweight American dregs. Putin's forbearance is not immediately attacking Turkey might have put off the start of another and probably last world war, but that catastrophic event is merely postponed, not canceled, as the U.S. and its paid assassins continue to assault all those countries not corralled by phony leaders with not-so-secret allegiance to the Israeli-American war machine and banksters. The domination of Jewish media in America, which prevents legitimate debate over the course of America is to take toward its future, is reflected in the plastic and insincere attitudes of the presidential candidates, who apparently approve of Barack Obama doing exactly what the Jews tell him to do and destroy one country after another. There is no candidate who openly challenges the criminal behavior of the United States. Even the popular Donald Trump is in favor of a powerful American military, and all of the rest of them are in favor of war based on the false scenario that Russia is the aggressor and that the Syrian president is a murderous tyrant, in the same way that the very popular Muammar Gaddafi was bad for his people. Regardless of how simplistic thinkers might like what Trump had to say, there is really no alternative candidate to the war party, the party of the banks, the party of the Jews. So it is now up to the American people to solve the problem, but from what I've seen and heard, nobody has a viable plan to get this job done other than what I've told you today about the whole Liberty Village concept. In addition to the mind-locked media, Jews control the movies and the music, which have now painted the white people who created this country in a bad light, and the dark-skinned people who dominate the crime scene and fill the prisons to be humans to be immolated. Pardon me while I throw up. Even the internet is controlled by Jewish companies. Google, PayPal, Microsoft, and Apple, and the book distribution network is dominated by the Jewish Amazon, which recently banned Professor Jim Fetzer's book that the Sandy Hook event was an entirely false flag operation in which nobody was killed, something anybody who has studied the matter in depth knows is absolutely true. Google, in particular, presents a difficult situation for everybody on the planet. Like Wikipedia, Google assiduously weeding out any facts that paint Jews in bad light, and as a consequence, the knowledge base of the world is inexorably shrinking and turning into propaganda wholly supportive of the Jewish totalitarian scheme. In the aftermath of the destruction of 2 Russian aircraft, both attempts to sabotage the noble Russian effort to halt the Jewish-American destruction of Syria, 2 hellaciously damning facts have been revealed regarding the perfidy of NATO member Turkey and their secret allegiance to the Israeli maniacs. And 1. Israel is the principal buyer of ISIS oil from factories it has captured. The second biggest customer may be revealed in the long line of tankers waiting to get into the docks of Houston. And 2. The word is out that the son of the Turkish president is the mastermind behind the oil scam, principally selling ISIS oil to Israel. If this is so, it's no wonder Turkey shot down the Russian bomber, because Turkey and NATO are fighting to protect ISIS because they're profiting mightily from the oil ISIS is stealing from Iraq. If this is so, Putin has every right to blow NATO ally Turkey to kingdom come, and of course, should that happen, the West would be compelled to come to Turkey and defend its criminal activity. Of course, that would mean World War III and the possible end of human civilization. But by their wantonly criminal maneuvers, World War III seems to be exactly what Turkey, the United States, and the Jews eagerly want. The only logical solution to the world's continuing oppression because of the Jews' ubiquitous control of the money supply is to obliterate Israel, invade the city of London, and arrest and execute the Jewish bankers who have insinuated their asphyxiating tentacles around every country on the planet, depriving them all of their rightful wealth, and cause the unnecessary deaths of uncounted millions of innocent people by their brutal control of the major military forces in the world. Since the Jews essentially own all the military arrays, who could possibly accomplish such a task? It's very unlikely to happen, yet human society must be liberated from Jewish control or perish. Not only is the religious objective of the Jewish Talmud to kill or enslave all the non-Jews of the country, the Jews have effectively put themselves in a position to do that by their control of the U.S. military, their control of organized medicine, their control of food production industry, and their absolute control of the world's finances, which guarantees them control of the world's population. There is no negotiating with Jews. Their overarching insanity prohibits reasonable human-to-human discussions. How one deals with a mad dog is the appropriate metaphor. These are truly dark days that approach us now, and the fires of hell being kindled by the consuming lies we hear on TV, lies produced by Jews who have no concern for what is right and what is fair, only for the twisted pathologies that roll off their tongues with no regard for anyone but themselves. If we, the sincere humans of the planet Earth, wish to survive, we need to neutralize the Jews and put them someplace where they can't hurt anybody else. Hurting, fleecing, robbing, raping, and murdering others has been their speciality for thousands of years. If that place is 6 feet under, so much better. It's something they would richly deserve. It would make sense to kill them before they kill us, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen that way. Certainly not if they get their way and start World War III, which is what these psychological, pathological, homicidal maniacs sincerely deserve. Thank you for listening. Art, thanks for being with me. FreeAmerican.com